All right. We'll get into kind of some other tax optimization options that we often see people focusing on. All of these are focused on trusts versus some other areas. Intentionally defective grantor trusts, they're really used for people worried about gift and estate taxes, and most commonly used by families that are significantly over the lifetime gift exemption. There's actually a recent New York Times article about Jensen Huang, the founder of NVIDIA, who uses intentionally defective grantor trusts. Unsurprisingly, if anyone's following the news, NVIDIA is doing really well. Jensen Huang and his family are significantly over the gift and estate tax. They're using intentionally defective grantor trusts to help mitigate their estate taxes and pass on as much as possible to future generations. Now, we have a separate webinar and video you can watch online about how these structures work. But Peter, let's just assume that someone here has an intentionally defective grantor trust. What are some of the things that they should look to do before the end of the year to really optimize it?
Yeah. So on the capital gains front, something that you could do which is relatively simple, that you can even do through Valor if you have a Valor trust, is you can swap out the highly appreciated assets in the trust for assets that you have personally that are much higher basis. So, why would you do this? The reason is that these intentionally defective grantor trusts don't get basis step ups when you die. Basis step up is so basically, to give you context, when somebody dies, any assets that they own personally or in their name get stepped up to fair market value. So if you have stock that's super appreciated, when you die, that stock will get stepped up to whatever the fair market value is. The basis will be stepped up. So your kids can sell the stock and not pay capital gains tax after your death. Irrevocable trusts don't get that benefit in most cases. And so you sort of have this capital gains issue with irrevocable trusts where they own highly appreciated assets and they won't get a basis step up when the grantor dies. And so a way to mitigate that is to do a swap before the grantor dies. And so if the trust has a highly appreciated stock or crypto or whatever it is, and the grantor has cash or bonds or other high basis assets, the grantor can swap those high basis assets into the trust in exchange for the low basis assets. Like there's no immediate tax consequences, but what it does is it gets the low basis assets into the grantor's estate where they'll experience a basis step up when the grantor dies, and they get the high basis assets that don't need a basis step up into the irrevocable trust.
Perfect. Yeah. How do you take advantage of step up? Because it is such a powerful get out of jail card for capital gains taxes when you're kind of approaching end of life scenarios. Move those low basis assets into your estate, get step up, and so your kids, when they receive them, can sell them without any tax consequences. Now, let's jump into two. We've talked about a bit about this, but really, if you're planning to sell appreciated assets and you don't need the money or all of the liquidity up front, it's a really good option to sell the appreciated asset, defer the taxes, and reinvest the money to create more wealth for you on that side. That's just a piece of.
Yeah, if you already have a CRUT, you can reuse it. You can contribute more assets to the existing CRUT. And so you don't even need to create a new one if you already have one in place.
Yeah. We work with folks who have public stock, real estate, crypto, even folks who've contributed artwork to these, appreciated artwork before they sell. So you can kind of use this for a large range of things. The other piece is, even if you aren't planning to sell it this year, you can donate the asset this year, get the charitable deduction this year, and sell it next year. So that's also really common. Then going to, let's say you already have a CRUT, and in particular a NIM CRUT, one of the things you can do is look at how you can really, and the NIM CRUT's a particular type of CRUT or charitable remainder trust that you have some control over when you take distributions, and you can defer distributions based on how you control the trust income. And so if you do want income or don't want income, you want to make sure that you realize or don't realize enough gains this year to hit your target distribution goal. And the big benefit is if you don't want or need the money from the trust, keeping it in the trust will allow it to keep growing tax-free and create more wealth for you in the future. So on the other hand, if you do want money, you really need to make sure that you realize enough income to cover it. So important to just kind of make sure you know your goals and then figure out what we need to do within the trust to take care of that. If you work with Valor, you have that CRUT, you can let us know and we'll help you take care of that on your side. Final kind of trust we're going to talk about for end of year optimization is non-grantor trusts. I'll give the quick kind of preamble on this. Non-grantor trusts, it's another common estate planning trust for folks worried about gift and estate taxes. It's different than intentionally defective grantor trusts in that non-grantor trusts are their own tax. They have their own tax identity and they pay their own taxes. And the one kind of unique piece is that when the non-grantor trust realizes income, it kind of has two options. There has to be taxes paid on the income, but somewhat uniquely of, let's say I'm the beneficiary of a non-grantor trust. If the trust keeps the income, i.e. doesn't distribute it to me, the trust will pay the taxes on the income. On the other hand, if the trust distributes that income to me, then I'll pay the taxes on the income. Am I missing anything in describing this scenario?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right.
How would someone think about kind of optimizing it? Let's say they are either the trustee or beneficiary of a non-grantor trust. How can they think about optimizing these distributions to minimize capital gain taxes?
Yeah, so it's basically you have to think about what the beneficiary's tax rate is. But if you have a beneficiary who lives in a high tax state, has a high income, it's probably not beneficial to make distributions to them if you're just thinking purely about income tax, capital gains tax. But if you have a beneficiary who is fresh out of college and lives in Texas or something, maybe you can distribute an appreciated asset to that beneficiary so that they can sell that asset and pay a low tax rate.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's just really, again, that's something Valor would take care of on if you work with us. But it's just a broader piece of, how do you mitigate taxes, keep more wealth in your trust, in your family, and with compounding, create a lot more wealth for your family.